All right. It looks like we're live here. The hope was to have a little bit more technology going in terms of we had a countdown clock going on, and then Geff and I were going to talk for like a split second, and then we're going to bring in Tommy Hutton. But like any great endeavor, we didn't test anything out yet, so we had some issues. So we're going to start Sev Geff live. Sev. And Geff's in the middle, and Tommy Hutton
Right here.
is our guest for today. Is on
Special
the other
guest.
side of the
First
screen.
guest in history.
First guest in history. That's right.
It's exciting.
Right. Tommy Hutton, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Hey, I'm honored, and never was there a doubt that you guys would put this together.
I had a lot of doubts. We've spent a lot of time, probably too much, the last couple of days trying to figure this thing out.
There was more doubt than demand, but we're here anyway.
And like I said, listen, the first time we did it was Friday, Geff, right? We tried this Friday on Instagram Live. We had some technical glitches. Some people couldn't sign on, so we apologize again for that. So we tried Twitter Live. We're going through a whole other thing here to broadcast with the three of us to make this thing work. So anybody who's shown any sort of interest and any patience as well, we definitely appreciate it.
Love it. Thank you. And I'm going to try to keep an eye while we're doing this. When you see me looking down, I'm going to try to keep an eye on Twitter. If folks have questions or comments, you can send them hashtag Sev Geff Live. We are now on Twitter at Sev Geff Live, and we'll be tweeting updates on shows in the days ahead. We'll have a lot of special guests coming up. I don't know that we're going to get bigger than Tommy Hutton, but we have Hut here. We have a limited amount of time, so let's get going with Hut here.
All right, let's do it. Hut, do me one quick favor. Just put the camera a little bit more, because I think toward your right ear. Move it toward your right ear just a little bit more. Center yourself up on the show. There we are. Okay, because
that's good. Good directing. Good directing.
Right? You see what I'm doing here? I always, you know him, Christian, our fearless director on Marlins games on Fox Sports Florida. I always joke with him and I tell him, just hit the direct button. And I have found in these last couple of days, there actually is no direct button. There's a lot of buttons to push. So anyway, we do see that there are some tweets and comments coming in. Thank you all. We're going to get to those. And right now, as Geff said, would have been the time that we would have welcomed Tommy in, but we're still working through the technology on this, so Tommy's already here. So Hut, with all this extra time on your hands, I know you only got 15 minutes, and we can be honest in this platform here. He doesn't have to go to go see a grandchild or anything. He's going to play golf. Okay, let's just be honest. He's got to zip out of here for some
proper social distancing.
Yeah, I have to,
just so nobody panics.
I have to explain to you that everybody on the golf course has an individual golf cart. There are no rakes in the bunkers to pick up. There are no sand buckets to fill divots. No one touches the flag stick. All the water coolers are gone. You bring your own water.
Wow.
And there's no socializing after playing. If you do have a beer, you're going to sit 6 to 8 feet apart. So it's golf at its social distancing best, I think you can put it.
See, I've been practicing social distance golf for a while. Yeah. I just hit every tee shot into the woods. And I'm the only one over there, so that's good. But what are you doing with your extra time now, unfortunately, that we all kind of have?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. It's my wife and I were talking about this a couple days ago, and we're going to start Monday. We're going to kind of make a list of things that we kind of need to do around the house. We're going to try to get little workouts in. We have a small workout room in the house that has enough for what I can do now anyway. And so we're going to try to do that. Try to get a walk in every day. And get something done around the house. And I think a lot of people are going to try to do the same thing, and not only in the United States, but around the world. This is something we've never dealt with. And to not put it lightly, but the one thing I truly miss is reading box scores.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny. As we sit here today, this would have been the day the Marlins break camp. Today would have been the final 2 spring training games, a split squad day, a home game against the Astros in Jupiter, and a road game against the Mets in Port St. Lucie. And then the next 3 days would have been 3 days to get settled in Miami, to find out who makes the club, to get settled in Miami, to work out a couple of days at Marlins Park on the new surface and get used to that. and opening day would have been on Thursday. It's hard to believe as we sit here. Today would have been the day that camp breaks. We know it won't be. Now, Hud, you mentioned this is obviously a very unique situation, the history of mankind, but it's not entirely unique in baseball to see a season cut short and with no end in sight to the delay. You were part of it a couple of times. As a player, the final year of your career in 1981, there was a strike. And then as a broadcaster, the strike of 1994 that bled into 1995. Take us back to 81, though, from a player's perspective. What do you do when things just end and you're not sure when they're going to resume?
Well, it was crazy. I was with the Expos that year, and trust me, not having a good year. All you have to do is look at Baseball Reference.
I did, but I wasn't going to say anything.
Was not having a good year, but was still hanging on with the club. And all of a sudden, the players had their strike, and kind of hung around Montreal for a week or two. My brother-in-law was with the Phillies at the time, Dick Ruthven, and Dick and his wife had a friend that had a place, I believe, in either in New Hampshire or Vermont. I think Vermont. And we drove down there from Montreal, spent another week there. At that point, let's see, our oldest, we only had one son then, was 4. So we drove down there and just hung out there. I remember playing catch with Dick just to try to do a few little things, try to pick up some of his nuances too in case I faced him. But and then the crazy part about it, when it finally resumed, we congregated as a team back in West Palm Beach where the Expos had spring training, and we were only in West Palm for about 7 days, and then played a couple of exhibition games, 1 or 2 at Fenway Park. Resumed the season. I believe they had the All-Star game at that point. The season then resumed, and it was shortly after that I got released. So I actually, in hindsight, I should have stayed in Vermont.
Now, let's say we find out in mid to late May, we're going to get started. June 1st, June 15th is open day. What do you think, from a player's perspective, a second spring training needs to look like? What's the minimum you can do, but what do you have to make sure you get in?
Well, the frustrating part and the tough part about it, you can't overload. It'd be easy to say, hey, let's have 2-a-days and do all this. You just can't do that in baseball. And then the other thing, there are, as you guys know, there are guys who are fighting to make the roster. I have a feeling, I don't know this, but I have a feeling when the season does resume, we might see 28-man rosters like we would see in September this year. Just to help arms and pitchers. But there are guys who are fighting to make a position. So that will be interesting. But again, the thing you have to watch out for as a player is overloading and say, well, I can get ready in 5 days. I can, if I do more, I can get ready. And that isn't always the case.
You know what's interesting, too? You mentioned guys that are trying to make the club. I was thinking about this the other night, is that whatever spring training version 2 will become, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's going to be long separated from the first spring training. So anyone who was playing well there was like, all right, maybe I've got the inside track on being the fourth outfielder or the backup utility infielder or whatever it is. Those guys, through obviously no fault of their own, may now be out of whatever role that they were in physically in a groove offensively, let's just say, and then go back to the drawing board, and then someone who might have been the fifth outfielder or the second, option number, in this case, 27th man on the roster, may leapfrog that other person. And it will be interesting on the evaluation side of things for clubs all right, well, which is the real, Glenn Geffner? Was the Glenn Geffner who was hitting 350 in spring training?
There's only one.
There's only one.
Yeah,
right.
That's the guy hitting 350.
But you're kind of going back to the drawing board in terms of evaluation for who's
and the guy who's 1 for 21 gets a fresh start also.
Exactly.
Yeah, the names that come to mind for me are a Lewis Brinson, maybe a Harold Ramirez, a Matt Kemp, a non-roster guy who had gotten off to a little bit of a slow start. So it does create a lot of interesting issues, but I hope Geff keeps the beard, though. I hope Geff keeps
Well,
it.
we'll see. It may not make it to our next little show here, but for now, it's been a lot of fun. When my wife says it goes, that's when it goes.
That's when it goes.
What about, here's the thing, though, when you talk about getting ready for the season, we had starting pitchers when we last played ball about 10 days ago who were up to 5 innings a start. And now you hope, or maybe I'll ask this question, do you hope that they go home and they're still throwing and still building it up? Because the hope by the end of spring training is you get 7 innings out of a starting pitcher, then maybe back them off a little bit in that final start. You would think that Mel Stottlemyre Jr. sends these pitchers home with a very detailed plan, and you'd think all 30 clubs are in that same position, but maybe the teams that plan for this dead time the best might have a big advantage coming out of the delay.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing to do team-wise because everybody's kind of dispersed. I would hope individually, because of the enormous amount of money that can be made in this game, I would hope that individually players would go back to wherever their homes are, find a place they can do their running, because that's the key. Keep your legs in shape. Find a place where maybe they can take some swings, either off a tee or maybe in a batting cage. Some guys have batting cages at their houses. Or if they're pitchers, go find a place to throw every couple of days. Throw a bullpen and find somebody that can catch you. I'm sure you can. And you would hope individually that would happen. And I agree with you. I would think maybe Mel Stottlemyre has given the pitchers some kind of a routine to follow, and hopefully they do that.
By the way, Geff, we failed to mention this off the top. It was your idea that with all this mention of opening day and when opening day might be, folks that are watching or listening or being involved, whatever, Geff, you want to pitch this? This was your idea for our logo. And speaking of opening day.
Well, that's right. Yeah. Well, we've got
I'm excited.
7 Geff Live. We got 7 Geff Live. Now we've established this. As of yesterday, we have a Twitter account. We obviously have a little show that we do every few days. We have an email address, but we don't have a logo. And neither Paul nor I is quite that creative. So we're looking for an illustrator out there. Hutton, maybe you know somebody. If somebody in the next several days can come up with a Sev and Geff Live logo, we're asking you to email it to us at sevgefflive@yahoo.com. And Paul and I are going to go through the submissions we get, and we're going to pick a winner. And if you're the winner we pick, you're going to be our guest for tickets to opening day at Marlins Park, whenever that may be, hopefully sooner rather than later. So I tweeted this out off the Sev Geff Live Twitter account yesterday. So for more information, you can go there and take a look. But we're looking for a logo. I think, Sev, we're looking for something classy, somewhat simple.
Whoa, wait a minute. You two guys are looking for something classy?
Well, simple. I started with simple. I went there first. But just that's kind of what I'm thinking. So, send us your submissions. And I've already heard from a couple of people who plan to submit something. We're looking for a logo. We can throw it up on the screen. There's a little bug here as people watch the program, the TV talk, a little bug on the screen. But so that's a little idea that we have. But more importantly, let's get back to HUD. We got a lot of questions for HUD here.
Yeah, hit it. Go
ahead.
Go ahead. Let's do it.
I threw a question out on Twitter this morning, and on Twitter and Facebook, this has gotten a lot of attention so far. So I want to throw this at HUD while we have him here. I've been throwing out every day on social media a question of the day to keep people thinking baseball, talking baseball, some different stuff, on field, off field, some fun stuff. Here's today's question. You're low on toilet paper, but are reluctant to go out in these unsettling times. Your neighborhood grocery is going to have 1 8-pack available when its doors open tomorrow morning. What all-time Marlin would you send to fight off the crowd and make sure you get what you need? Hunt, you've got as much perspective on this franchise as anybody, going all the way back.
Got a lot of respect on toilet paper too, but I didn't see any answers. I haven't looked on Twitter.
Okay.
I didn't want to see any of the answers. My first guess, Juan Pierre, because he'd be first in line. He'd get there first. And then the other 2 choices I had, because they are so and were so likable as Marlins, and I can just picture their smiles. That they would be able to just corral that 8-pack.
They charm you.
Cody Ross and Dontrell Willis.
All very good answers.
Yeah.
Sevy, who do you have?
See, I went a different direction. And while I don't think it's right what I've seen clips and videos of people fighting over this stuff, I think that we're all a little stressed and cooped up and We want to provide as best we can for our families. But if a fight breaks out, I need somebody tough. Fast is great. So there's the fast side of things, and then there's the tough side of things.
Right.
And I'm going with I got two choices.
Okay.
One current, one former. Gary Sheffield.
A lot of people pick Sheff.
Yeah, because
he comes in handy at a time like this.
Right. And the current would be Jorge Alfaro.
That's a good one. I don't think anybody picked Jorge.
Is solid. He's built like a bull, and he's quick too. He's quick. Right. He's fast for a catcher. And now I think the term will be he's fast for someone looking for toilet paper.
That's good.
And just to throw one in there on your thought would be Gabby Sanchez.
Oh, Gabby would be
a good bouncer. Yeah.
He's the leading vote getter. We've seen a lot of video this morning of Niger Morgan going down. I retweeted his video. I said, no TP for Niger. No TP for Niger. So, hey, I had two. I thought Speed also first, but I went D. Gordon. And I was surprised. It took a while for D. Gordon to start getting votes, but I saw a lot of Juan Pierre, a lot of Chucky Carr in that same vein, some Luis Castillo, but a Mets fan said just don't count him to drop it if it's popped out of the top shelf. The other guy I picked, who you guys didn't mention, and he started to get some support a little bit later on, took a while, was Kevin Brown, the fiercest competitor I've ever been around. So you give him that. And second, he may not be the fastest guy, might not get there first, but if he snarls at you, I think you're going to hand that toilet paper over. So I go D. Gordon and Kevin Brown. We'll talk later on after we let Hut go about some of the other votes. But
Kevin Brown is good. I mean, he didn't even smile after his no-hitter in San Francisco.
No, he was the best.
And he could also rip the 8-pack open and just chuck one out at a time.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw in
with
San
heavy
Diego,
sink too. They had good sink.
Heavy sink.
We've seen angry Kevin Brown, and in 1998 in San Diego, I saw angry Kevin Brown up close. He was walking up the tunnel at old Qualcomm Jack Murphy Stadium after what for him had been a disappointing outing. There was this giant Padres logo made of wood, like the size of a dining room table and the thickness of a dining room table, mounted to a brick wall just outside the Padres clubhouse. He came up the tunnel and with one hand grabbed that thing and just ripped it off the wall. It was unbelievable. There was also a TV that used to find a home in the Wrigley Field home or visitors clubhouse that Kevin Brown had to pay for. I saw that too. But still, if I needed toilet paper, Brownie's my guy.
Good choice.
All right.
That's good. We're approaching 11:20, Hut. You need to run?
I got a couple minutes.
You got a couple more minutes?
We got some questions for Hut, don't we?
Yes, we do. We had the one. This is one. Actually, I don't think I know the answer to this one. This one is from Ethan, and again, we appreciate all of your feedback, your questions. I've been trying to pop some of them up on the screen. Still learning the technology here as best we can. But from Ethan, I would like to know how Rich and Tommy came up with his name is Dan Uggla.
Yeah, it was one of those things that. You experience it, Paul. Geff, I know you do. You have over the years where other announcers will say, how do you pronounce this guy's name? They come into the booth and it just seemed like everywhere we went. And I don't know, it doesn't seem to be that tough of a name to pronounce. Uggla. Just look at it, Uggla. But for some reason, guys didn't know how to pronounce it. And Rich and I would get frustrated. We'd go, don't you guys follow the game? Don't you? This guy's got some power. And one night he hit a big home run. I'm not sure who it was against, but it was a big home run though. And Rich and I just looked at each other and we said, and his name is Dan Uggla.
Is that over the years? Is that the line that gets repeated back to you the most that you would use on the air regularly?
Yeah, probably, because we had fun with it, and I know Uggs had fun with it, and what a run he had as a Marlin, as far as a National League player, as a power hitting second baseman.
As a Rule 5 guy, too.
Yeah.
Coming out of the Diamondbacks organization. Hey, can you talk, I've never heard you talk about this, Hut, about how you transitioned from playing in 81 into the broadcast booth in 82?
A very interesting transition. I had the year before, actually, the winter before the 81 season, I knew I accepted, and this is hard for guys to do, I accepted that my career was, coming to an end. And I sent out letters. At that time, you didn't have email and all that stuff. I sent letters to every ball club to a person maybe that I knew in the organization that might not have been someone in the broadcast end of it, but might have been a GM. So I sent a letter to every club saying that, my career is winding down. I enjoy broadcasting. I'd love to stay in the game in some capacity in that area. And I might have had 4 or 5 responses. And certainly the Expos knew that I was interested. And when John McHale called me into the dugout in August to tell me that I was being released, he said, and by the way, I was sitting between John McHale and Dick Williams, who got fired like 3 days later. Dick Williams did. But
so made you the manager.
John McHale said to me, but would you like to remain with the club? This was on a Sunday that I got released. Would you like to remain with the club the rest of the year and help out on radio? Dave Van Horn and Duke Snyder did the radio. But occasionally, because there weren't as many TV games, they would do a CBC television game. And there was a gentleman by the name of Ron Roosh who did radio by himself. So they said, would you like to stay and work with Ron on the radio for those games? So I thought I had an opportunity actually to go to Japan, to play in Japan. And I thought, I just don't want to get that far away from the game in America. So I did that. So that was Sunday, and Wednesday I worked the game on the radio with Ron Roosh, and my pregame guest was Chris Spire, the shortstop. So it was a little unique and it was a little weird. And I've talked to young broadcasters who just get into it now because I was broadcasting for guys that I played with that were teammates. And as each year went by, I practiced more. I used to sit up in a booth by myself and do play-by-play. I taught myself how to keep score. I never knew how to keep score. So I learned how to do that. And then one thing led to another. I started doing TV up in Montreal with Ken Singleton, who now does a great job with the Yankees. Yeah. Then I moved on to different jobs, Yankees, ESPN, and then landed in South Florida, where I've made my home for 36 years.
And I think, if my math is right, you've probably called more Marlins games than anybody in this franchise's history. Dave is catching you in a hurry, but yeah. I think you were in the booth for more games than anybody in Marlins franchise history.
Yeah, I think Dave's going to lap me here pretty soon. But, yeah, I believe so, starting in 97. And it was fortunate for me. That was a World Series year. So got to jump in 97, saw a few no-hitters. I missed a couple. But always remember, you were talking about San Diego. Always remember the one A.J. Burnett threw in San Diego. Walked 9 guys, I think, and hit a guy.
Yep,
wasn't exactly clean. It wasn't clean.
Yeah, I looked at Dave O'Brien about the 5th inning because there were guys on base every inning, and I looked at Obi about the 5th inning. I said, "Do you realize he's got a no-hitter going?"
That was the night John Henry, the Marlins owner, got to the stadium in the middle of the game. He realized there was no hitter going on. He said, I better get over to the ballpark. He had been in town. I think there was a big party, wasn't there, on his yacht? And John got to the press entrance, didn't have a credential of any kind, was having a tough time getting into the ballpark that night. Eventually, they figured out who he was. They let him in.
We had an off day. He took everybody out on his yacht. It was great. Yeah. Went under Coronado Bridge and beautiful.
Well, I got one last. Can I ask one last Marlins question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead. Before we let him go?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little baseball one last time here with you. Spring training, what we saw. What did you like most for what you saw out of this team on the field? Might have been an individual player or a position group. What did you like the most?
I liked going out there and even on the backfields and seeing the depth. I mean, a lot of times you'd go out there and you could go to like 3 or 4 fields being used, and you might go, I don't want to look at the guys over there. I don't want to look I'll look at this field. You could pretty much look at every field and maybe see a Lewin Diaz on one field or a Gerard Encarnacion on one field. And just the depth, I think I've always enjoyed this. And not that the Marlins are the only team doing it now, but I enjoy standing there and watching everybody jog from field to field. Nobody's walking because they might see Gary Dembo. Nobody's walking. And just the overall attitude and the depth that you could see in the players that are in camp.
Yeah, you can definitely see it. And the way, and again, I haven't been to every spring training complex, but the way that the Marlins, for those of you that haven't been there, they've got what they call the quads. So they got kind of home plate is all in the same spot of 4 different fields. And, I've been there with Tommy. I've been there with Geff. I've been there with many different people, whether it's Holly or Dave Van Horn or whoever. and you just kind of sit there and you just kind of go in a little circle and you just turn around, and Hut's completely right. There's so much talent, and we talk about it a lot whenever we have Michael Hill on the air about the layering of talent, and I think that's what Tommy's getting at, is that you've got guys that are, the Brian Andersons, the Jonathan Villars, the Miguel Rojas's who are on the club now. You've got the J.J. Bledays and the Jazz Chisholms and the guys that are, maybe really close, and then you've got that other group that's even later on down the road, the Devers of the world that are still, approaching 20 years old, that could certainly be a part of this as the way it's going. And yeah, you're right. It's been fun. I miss Jupiter. But I miss Miami too.
Yeah, and you talk to guys like Matt Joyce, Corey Dickerson, Miguel Rojas, and you see what they're going to mean to a lot of the young players that you were referring to.
Absolutely. All right, 11:28. Tommy Hutton, you got to go tee it up, right?
Yeah, I just got a phone call. I think it was from the starter.
Okay, well, hurry up. Luckily, your house is on the first tee, so you're fine. You'll be there in plenty of time.
All right, good enough. Hey, I enjoyed this. Anytime I can do this with you, I'd be happy to.
Excellent.
Great stuff.
Appreciate you, buddy.
All right, guys.
All right. See if I could get rid of Hut without it being I think I did it. All right.
Tommy, I still see him.
What do I do to get rid of you guys?
Still see him.
Just be mean to us. You know what? Now he's gone. Okay. All right. Here we go. See, because that's the thing. I'll let the folks in behind the curtain a little bit. So we're working. I've got this program, this operation called Ecamm Live on my end of things, and Geff's on a Skype call, and I've sucked Geff up into this vortex of Ecamm Live. And so that's how we're broadcasting basically through my computer, but we had some technical glitches, as we assumed we would at the beginning. And so Geff made the phone call. So Geff cannot see the graphics that are on the screen on his Skype end of things, but hopefully you folks who are loyal, it seems, which is nice, watching on Twitter and Periscope and whatnot, can see some of those graphics. So we hope to do this more. We wish we didn't have to, I think, in the sense of, everybody being cooped up at home and not having baseball. But this is fun, Geff. This has been fun.
Well, it is
fun communicating with you about it.
And I've been thinking about the different things that baseball fans are doing to try to scratch their baseball itch as we go through this time when there are no games. And we talked a couple of days ago when we did the first show about the MLB network and the old games that they've been running. Last night, my 19-year-old son and I, he's home from college, we sat up late. We were on YouTube. We were watching old episodes of the Baseball Bunch and This Week in Baseball, which was a lot of fun. Just a random episode of the Baseball Bunch with the San Diego Chicken, and Johnny Bench was the host, and Greg Nettles, who was my favorite player growing up, was the guest on this particular episode. And then we saw a random episode of This Week in Baseball from 1977. They were talking about Rookie of the Year candidates, guys like Eddie Murray and Andre Dawson and people like that who are in the Hall of Fame now. It was really cool to watch. But with the old games being on the MLB network, there was a cool piece on, I think, MLB.com a couple of days ago about 5 games for every franchise that you can find on YouTube. If you flip over to YouTube, you can watch the entire broadcast of 5 very memorable games in franchise history. And I'm going to look for it somewhere. I have the 5 games they listed for the Marlins because I thought that was really interesting. There's a lot you can do through social media. I saw Tyler Kepner, who's the national baseball writer for New York Times, a longtime friend, great writer, very interesting guy. He opened up a pack of 1986 Topps baseball cards, and he tweeted out a picture of each card and then a quick comment, his recollection of each of the players that he saw on that in that set of baseball cards. Things like that. That's how we're getting through these days.
Yeah, it is interesting too. It's again, it's not ideal. I will say this: it is necessary though that we all kind of do this and stay. First of all, stay home. Just go out for the essentials. I keep seeing all these pictures and videos of people playing basketball and all this other stuff, and I mean, it frustrates me because I think that there's health involved for folks who are trying to protect those who are at risk, help protect them from getting sick. And on the other side, the much less important side, we're all trying to get back to normal life in terms of, getting out to the ballpark and broadcasting and stuff like that. So we just all need to take this as seriously as possible, respect what's going on, respect the rules that are kind of in place. And then on that personal side of things is figure out a way to make the most of this. And that's what Geff and I are trying to do as best we can right now.
And the more we stay in and do things like this, the quicker we get back to baseball and to our jobs and to school and to that sense of normalcy in our world. So certainly, hopefully, we're doing our part here a little bit. Just real quick, here are the 5 games. If you go on YouTube, and I'm sure you can find many, many others, but these are the 5 Marlins games that were recommended. You can find the first game in Marlins history, April 5th, 1993. Charlie Huff, the first pitch. Jeff Conine had 4 hits that day. Marlins beat the Dodgers. Edgar Renteria, the hero in Game 7 of the World Series in 1997. You can watch that full game on YouTube. Josh Beckett's performance in Game 6 of the 03 World Series at Yankee Stadium. It was called a win for Jose in this broadcast. The first game back after Jose Fernandez passed away to this day. And literally, I'm getting chills right now just even thinking about it. Far and away the most emotional thing I've ever been around in the sport of baseball, and maybe even in life. And then the Edinson Volquez no-hitter, June 3rd, 2017, is the last one listed there. But those are just 5 games, 5 very memorable games in Marlins history. You can go on YouTube and watch start to finish. And it's fun to look at some of those old games and see what the uniforms look like. And my son was commenting, we were watching 1977. God, the players were all fat back then. They don't look like they look now. So it's funny to see that. A lot of people are watching baseball movies.
Right.
I don't know, Paul, do you have a favorite baseball movie that you would watch at a time like this?
I think it's, for me, I think it's Major League.
Okay.
I think of that because I had seen it a lot, but I remember back to a summer when I was broadcasting for an independent league baseball team in Connecticut, New Haven County Cutters. They were around for 3 years. I was there for the second year. But that was, I had graduated on May 15th, 2005, and I started helping their broadcast on May 17th, 2005. So it was like right out of college. And I remember that was my first embedded with a team kind of experience, and the bus rides and, the guys who some might consider washed up or hanging on to their baseball careers or whatever. They were teachers, they were insurance agents for the other 7-8 months of the year. Just trying to figure out a way to get by. It was like, oh my God, this is, and I still think of that too. This is something, as much as people think, oh, it sucks we're on buses, and we've had this discussion too, as much as that might stink, at times in the long course of the season, oh, we're getting into Philadelphia hotel at 4 a.m. and we're on a bus going from the airport to the hotel in D.C., and that's a 45-minute drive, and we're doing that at 3:30 in the morning. Sometimes that's tough, but I don't think I will ever take for granted that there is a small portion of people who even get to do that. And I think that for me, that's one of those things. And I've said this before too. One of my favorite moments in a day, I love the broadcasting, I love the camaraderie that we have and all that other stuff, but I love the solitary or the solitude, maybe is the right word, of the walk when we're on the road, of off the bus and through the tunnels to either walk into the clubhouse and check out the lineup card or go through the elevator when there's no one in the ballpark. And those are the moments after the game in the tunnel that there's nobody. If you really wanted to, you could get a full season package and go to 81 games. And you could see every game just like we see every game. But there are certain places that you as a fan can't go that we get to go, and I don't take that for granted. So long story long on Major League, that was it, because it was like the first time I got to get embedded with a team.
Yeah, related to that moment you're talking about, walking into the ballpark every day, I stop during the national anthem every single night to this day and just look around the ballpark and think about what it was like as a kid growing up in South Florida before the Marlins even existed. But now here I am doing what I'd always wanted to do, broadcasting in the major leagues for my hometown team. But every night during the anthem, I just take a second to slow down and look around and realize how fortunate I am to be where we are. I'm going to give you 2 baseball movies. I like Bull Durham a lot. And Bull Durham, written by Ron Shelton, who some may know, some may not know, played in the minor leagues in the Baltimore Orioles organization and played on some really good teams in the minor leagues. He spent a little bit of time, 1970 and 1971, in Rochester, New York, which is where I began my broadcasting career with the Red Wings. And at one point during my time in Rochester, I got there in 1990, left in 1996. There was an anniversary of Bull Durham coming out. And no, you know what it was? It was an anniversary of one of the great teams in Rochester Red Wings history. And they brought all the guys back from that team, including Ron Shelton, who was on that team. And we did a private screening of the movie with just the guys who were on that team and their families. All those stories were based on Ron Shelton's career and based on guys he played with coming up in the Orioles organization. So there were guys in that room who snuck out to the ballpark and turned on the sprinklers in the middle of the night so they couldn't play the next day. And guys were looking around and pointing and giggling, and wives didn't know what was going on. That was a really cool experience, having Ron Shelton on the air to talk about that. So Bull Durham always will hold a special place in my heart as another guy who, like you, worked in the minor leagues for a while, and Field of Dreams for me. And I always say it's not just a baseball movie. It's about playing catch with your dad. And having been to Dyersville a couple of times, having seen it in person, and I hope that they get to play that game in Dyersville still this year. Remember, the Yankees and White Sox were scheduled to play a game, and they're building a pop-up MLB ballpark like we played in at Fort Bragg a few years ago. Hopefully they'll be able to still do that. But for me, Bull Durham and Field of Dreams are my two.
That's awesome. And maybe that is where we stop for today as a sort of a jumping off point for a question for our next show. Fans' favorite baseball movies.
Let's do it.
Right? What do you say about that? So a couple of bits of business here. We wanted to go about a half an hour. We're a little later than that. So thanks again for joining us. So again, as Geff mentioned,
it really does.
I know, right? You were not getting paid by the hour. You know that, though, right?
We're not getting paid, period. But that's all right. Well, yeah, so it's all good. We're here because we love this. We want to interact. We are very appreciative to those of you who would tune into something as silly as this. We love your passion for baseball, for the Marlins, and we're happy to help try to scratch that itch any way we can.
Right. So as Geffen mentioned before, we now have a Twitter handle for this, as I believe you can see on the top of the screen. It's at Sev Geff Live to get your questions and comments in leading up to a show or during a show. It's the hashtag of Sev Geff Live. We got to figure that one out. And then Geff, remind everybody of the Sev Geff Live logo contest in regards to an opening day, whenever opening day might be.
Yeah, we are encouraging any illustrators out there who would like to participate to come up with a Sev Geff Live logo over the course of the next several days. Maybe about a week from now, we'll cut it off. And if Paul and I see something we really like, that's going to become our official logo. We'll use it on our Twitter page. We'll use it as a bug on the screen for these broadcasts that we do. And whoever's logo we pick will be rewarded with 4 tickets to be our guest at opening day, whatever that may be for the Marlins in 2020. And if for some reason you can't make opening day, we'll find another game to get you out there. But we'd like to think opening day will be here sooner rather than later, and we'd love to have you out as our guest.
Right. And now that Tommy's not here, I can announce that as an added bonus, Tommy Hutton will come to your house, pick you up, and bring you to the game.
And take you golfing. Take you golfing.
Right. Let's put more on his plate while he's not here. No, the Tommy Hutton picking you up part, that's a joke, but the tickets are not a joke. So, again, thanks to anybody who's watched our first one, our second one. Again, we're working on the technology. Hopefully, there haven't been many, if any, problems this time around. We'll continue to tighten it up, and we'll continue to come up with hopefully some decent ideas for this. People want to scratch their baseball itch. We're just trying to scratch our broadcasting itch. That's why we're doing this too. That's another reason why.
We asked yesterday for ideas for guests you guys would like to see moving forward. And we were appreciative for the submissions. And we're going to take you up on some of those. We're going to reach out to some people we know around the game. Primarily, we'd like to stay as close to the Marlins family as we can, although we won't do that exclusively. But we'll get to some players, some former players, some front office executives, other people maybe around the team who might be of interest to you. So let us know who you'd like to hear from, what you'd like us to ask them, and we'll get to as many guests, members of the broadcasting family, certainly, like Tommy Hutton today, and we'll have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Geff. Excellent. Thanks, man. This was good. We're gonna keep getting better, and we're gonna keep getting bigger. We're gonna have fun with this, guys. So we appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Sev Geff, live, signing off.